come sit with me and tell me your story. You've come a long way, girl. Hold yourself out and fight the left. Those were some dark times back then, but it's all over now. You're not alone anymore. Come sit with me and tell me your story. This is Trucking with Tammy, where your journey's heard and your voice is free. You're not alone, come share your story with me.
Welcome back to Trucking with Tammy, everybody. Happy Training Tuesday. This is week 3 of our 3-part health and wellness series as we lay out the foundation for the full ELDT series ahead. We're here to help drivers build strong, lasting habits and give them the tools to feel better and stay stronger on the road. So today we are going to talk about a resource for drivers when illness or injury strikes. St. Christopher Truckers Relief Fund. It's a nonprofit that's been helping drivers since 2007. So today we're joined by the person leading those health and wellness efforts, Lindsey Bryan. She's a health and wellness manager at the St. Christopher Truckers Relief Fund. She's the host of their Highway to Hope podcast and a true advocate for drivers everywhere. Lindsey, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. That was quite the introduction. I'm honored.
I like to give good intros when I do it. So, Lindsey, we have you and we have St. Christopher Fund, but let's start with you. If you don't mind, could you take us on your personal journey? What brought you into health and wellness? And then how did you end up at the St. Christopher Fund?
Absolutely. You know, I had a really interesting journey that I think is what sparked my passion for all things health and wellness. I started out actually in the mental health field, working in drug and alcohol counseling, and then I transitioned into social work and even did a little bit of inpatient psychiatric rehabilitation. And so touched a little bit of everything there for a while. And it was about that time that, truthfully, I think just the stress of working in that profession, even though I loved it, I loved every part of it, but it was stressful and it started to have an impact on my body. And I didn't know it at the time, but I had an autoimmune condition that was just wreaking havoc. And so I had to make a pretty significant career change, and it led me into nutrition counseling, which sounds like a very big jump, but it's actually a lot of the same things. We're all dealing with the same demons. It's just affecting people in different ways, whether it's drugs and alcohol, or it's causing depression, or it's causing us to overeat or undereat, or have a unhealthy relationship with food. And so it really was much of the same. But it was sometime after that, I was diagnosed with Sjogren's, which for anybody that hasn't heard of it, similar to lupus, it just affects different organs. And it was really a driving point behind my own health and wellness journey of like foods fuel your body, right? And so the company that I worked for, I loved the work that I did, but they became a for-profit organization and then eventually a franchise, and things were just changing very drastically in a direction that I didn't love. I believed in our mission, but it wasn't for me. And so I went on a journey for a nonprofit, and I landed with St. Christopher Fund. And I say this jokingly, but also with some seriousness. I knew it was the one when I went in for our interview, and it was just this little hole in the wall office, and the chairs were wonky, and we were just like this little two room space. And I said, I know the money's going where it's supposed to be. This is where I'm meant to be. And here I've been for the last 3 years.
That's a great point, because when you walk into a flashy building and they're in a high tower, you know the percentage of money isn't going where it needs to be. So that is great to hear that about St. Christopher. So with your autoimmune disorder, you are battling a lot of the same things that you see daily with drivers. Does that help you be able to work with them and shape the way that you support them?
Very much so. Very much so. I've got drivers who are, just struggling to get up and get moving and get that exercise started. And they talk about my joints hurt and my muscles hurt and everything hurts. And like, I get that. I totally get that. And it doesn't mean that we've got to go join a gym and do some weightlifting. We can start slow, and it's going to feel silly slow to begin with. And so being able to kind of hold their hand through that journey and say, I get it. I've been there. I know what that feels like. And still have days like that sometimes for myself. I do. I think that makes a huge difference.
So dealing with you and the drivers, it's a lot on a person when they have their own battles to work day be filled with others' battle. What keeps you grounded, and your outlet for that?
I think it is really the little things when I get to hear about, a driver accomplishing a health and wellness goal, no matter how small it is. I get really fired up about that. And that's how I know
Good.
that's where my heart is at. When they tell me, I've been avoiding going to the doctor for the last 10 years, but I went and got lab work because you asked me to. Yes, that is a huge victory in my book. That means we now have important information to go off of, and we can help prevent things for the future. And I get to see that day in and day out with improved lab work and people's blood pressure being within normal range and weight loss. And I could go on and on with all the different programs that we have. But I fully believe that we are not only extending their lifespan, but we're getting them better quality of life with that time.
Good, good. Yeah, I can imagine, you deal with a lot of drivers in a difficult time for them, their journey, because you get them after they're already struggling with
Mhm.
their health. And so I imagine, dealing with that on a daily basis, and your own struggles that when you get off work, what do you do to bring a little bit more positivity and healthful thinking habits into your life?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got a son who's 8, and he's also had some very unique health problems. He had something called neutropenia when he was younger, which is part of the white blood cells. He was almost entirely missing those. It was very
Oh, wow.
equivocal to like somebody on chemo treatments. And so we had to be very cautious. And I fully believe that nutrition plays into helping the body to heal and recover. And so, um, I get off of work and I'm automatically thinking, okay, what am I making for dinner? And we're getting in our very lean protein and our veggies and our whole grains. And um, anytime the weather allows for it, usually between cooking dinner and work, I'm out in my garden where I grow veggies that help to feed our family. And it's activity for me, and it's activity that I really enjoy, which is something I harp on with all of our drivers. We want it to be something that we enjoy and something that is sustainable. So it's got to check both of those boxes. And that's part of how I sustain that for myself. So that's a lot of what keeps me going.
Good. Healthy habits and sustaining are very important. And as a mom, we like to take care of our children and our family, and being able to plant our own garden, I can see can be very emotionally satisfying with doing that.
Very much so. Very much so. My son loves to come out there with me, more so for the bugs and the critters. But there's still some days where he'll help me plant and dig up things. And I think it's nice for him to know where food comes from and what it takes to grow it. And it's a labor of love, very much so.
What's his favorite thing that you plant?
Oh gosh, I would probably say the strawberries because that's one of the few fruits that I grow. But he loves picking the sugar snap peas. This
Mm.
is a really funny joke with him. I always set out his medications in the evening, and we've got a little dish that they go on. And when it's in the middle of gardening season, I'll put like a couple of sugar snap peas or, something that I've picked. And he takes that right along like it's part of his vitamins and it's part of his medications. And he
Aw.
doesn't think a thing about it. It's just he enjoys it, and that's part of it.
Yeah, my grandson, he loves his vegetables, and my youngest son is 18, and we have a video of him. He hated peas when he was, and literally we have a video where he's trying to, and he's just having this mental breakdown over peas. And my grandson eats them like they're candy. He just loves them.
Mhm.
And I think that's great when they do that, because there's so many kids who don't like their veggies, but they need them. And my daughter used to hide hers in her mashed potatoes, and
Sometimes you
so
have to get creative, to be fair, but also it's nice when they find some that they like. And
it is. So for anyone new to the St. Christopher Truckers Relief Fund, I'm going to ask. I know when we were setting you up for this podcast today, the one thing you said was, Tammy, now I just want to reiterate, St. Christopher's Fund is not a mental health, we don't do mental health. And that is a common misconception.
it is.
So why don't you tell the listeners what the core mission of St. Christopher's is and how it all began, if you don't mind?
Sure. Believe it or not, we actually have two core missions, and one very much supports the other. So, for drivers that are sick or injured and have gone out of work within the last year, it's got to be a Class A CDL over the road driver. We will step in and help to provide financial support short term. And we can cover bills like rent or mortgage, utilities, vehicle payments, and insurance just to help get them on their feet. And so that mission has been going strong for right at 18 years now, which is really amazing to think about. What we found over a period of time, though, was that there was a pattern to why drivers were coming off the road. And if I narrow it down to the top 5 or so, it's cardiovascular disease, stroke, heart attacks, diabetes, and diabetes complications like amputations. And then there's this one kind of oddball of breaks and fractures. There's only so much we can do with those. But so out of that came our second mission. If we want to try to proactively prevent those things. And at this point, we have now built an assortment of health and wellness programs that are completely free to Class A over-the-road drivers that help to prevent each and every one of those, except for the bone breaks and fractures. Again, there's only so much we can do there, but we have got tobacco cessation, we've got preventative cancer screenings, we have the diabetes prevention program, we've got just new programs coming all the time on top of what we already do as well.
You have group sessions too, I believe.
Mhm. We sure do. Most of our chronic disease management programs and our diabetes prevention program, I run them as a group. And it's really to allow drivers to connect with other people that are going through similar challenges. I describe myself as I'm going to help to provide the knowledge about health and wellness, but they are the experts of their own body and their lived experiences out on the road. I don't live in a truck day in and day out.
Right.
And so they come up with all sorts of creative ideas that they can then share with each other. And I learn along the way too, which is a really nice part of that. But it takes that group approach to build that camaraderie and the team effort and learning together. And I think that helps to support the learning environment.
How does the group work? I mean, do you have sessions? Do you have like a Zoom meeting? How do the drivers interact with each other with such a, drivers have a very heavy day. So how do they make it work over the road?
Yeah, great question. All of our classes currently are run through Zoom, and they're set up so that I've usually got, if it's a class, I've got a PowerPoint going, but they don't have to be looking at it at all. They can be tuned in just listening over a headset or earbuds or whatever it may be. And we try to keep that part of it completely safe for them to be able to drive and just listen in.
Okay.
All of our classes, however, are also recorded. And so I will upload them to an unlisted YouTube channel. So if somebody isn't able to attend, if they're dropping off or picking up or needing to sleep or whatever it may be, they can catch up on that class after the fact whenever it's convenient. So even for some of the carriers that don't let drivers to participate in that, which, of course we understand, they can still participate in their own way. And then we've got a channel where they can chat in a group chat. And so there's still some, questions, and they share things that they find and recipes and that sort of thing outside of class.
Oh, wow. That's really beneficial then to their schedule.
Very much
So
so, yes.
a little bit about the relief fund. Could you let us know how it works, what drivers need to do, qualifications?
Absolutely. So on the beneficiary side, we have got, it's kind of a two-step application. The first one is just going to cover eligibility criteria. We want to make sure that they are a Class A over-the-road driver, that they went out of work within the last 365 days. So if this was something from a couple years ago, that's outside of our ability to help. We have to be able to request medical records for whatever has pulled them out of work. So if this is something where they haven't gone to the doctor for it and we can't get records, then unfortunately we won't be able to help. So that's another important piece of it. So the second part of the application just goes through the basics of when did this happen? When was the last time they worked? Are they expecting to be able to go back to work? We get a little financial information. It just kind of helps us paint a picture of how quickly do we need to be able to provide assistance, but also what other resources might we'd be able to link them with. So if this is a cancer diagnosis, we've got some really supportive cancer resources that we can go ahead and send to them to help in other ways. Once they submit the application, we take it from there. We're going to do an employment verification just to double check, because unfortunately there are scammers. So we've got to cross our T's.
You see that a lot in the groups.
Unfortunately, yes. We will request medical records. There's nothing else that they need to do there. And aside from that, we just tell them, watch for an email from us or watch for a call. We may have some follow-up questions, but we process everything from there. And as soon as they have been approved, we say, all right, send us your bills. Let's get those taken care of. And we'll send that check directly to the company so that they don't have to worry about a thing while they're recovering.
And also you're making sure that the money is going where it needs to go.
Exactly.
Is there a maximum amount that you provide to people in need with this program?
There is, but honestly, it changes year to year depending on how many applications we're receiving, what kind of funds we have available. And so we generally don't disclose that part of it, but I will say it's usually enough to cover rent or mortgage and another bill or two along the way.
Yeah, that's the point I wanted to kind of cross. Like, as a single woman, I have car payment, mortgage, insurance, utilities, right? So credit card payments. You're not going to come in and be like, "Oh, just send me a list of everything," and you're going to cover the basic, the most important thing to help them get through.
Yes, the vital living expenses is what we call them. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And as you were saying, when they come to you with a health issue, you're also going to steer them to the health and wellness part of it. And you do have one program that I get a kick out of, and it's because of the name of it. And that is your smoking cessation program.
Yes, our smoking cessation program is Rigs Without Sigs.
I love that.
It is our longest running program, and it's one that I get real fired up about, and I'll tell you exactly why, because it's kind of heart-wrenching. When we see somebody come through on the beneficiary side and it is lung cancer, by the time they are catching it, it's almost always stage 4, and the outlook is not good. And so when we are supporting drivers to quit smoking, I tell them, I do not want to see you on that side of our organization. It sneaks up on people. It oftentimes is a very silent killer up until the last stage or so. And so every time we get a case like that, I know we need to rush it because they may not even survive the application process. Now, we'll still step in and help the family, but that doesn't give them peace of mind before they pass, obviously. And so those are always very hard cases, but that's why we're always so hopeful we can help people to stop early before that risk is really prevalent.
A lot of the drivers that I know that are smokers don't just smoke a half a pack or a pack a day. They smoke multiple packs a day because they're just sitting there, and it's a boredom habit. And that really contributes to that problem. So how does your Rigs Without Sigs work?
It's a very comprehensive program. So they start out with a phone call with me. It's usually about an hour long. We're going to cover everything from when did they start? What have they tried in the past? I'll get details about how did it go? Sometimes people say, well, it wasn't really great. And I say, well, tell me about it. Did we have side effects with whatever you tried? Was it, we made it a while and then something very stressful happened? Like, it helps me to know how to support them. We will talk about all the different treatment options that we can provide, and that includes everything from nicotine patches, medications. We've got apps we can recommend. We cover all the different options. We'll talk about some things like more habit-based things, like do you smoke more in the truck or at home? What does their caffeine intake look like? Which sounds unrelated, but it absolutely is related.
It's not. Yeah.
And so we cover a lot of things. We will work together to come up with a treatment plan of whatever makes sense for them. And then after that phone call, I'm going to send my emails and send out packages to them and do all the back work to make sure they've got everything they need to get started. And then I end up being their check-in person for an entire year after they have quit smoking. And so it usually starts out with weekly calls or emails or texts, whatever they've chosen as their form of contact. And these are conversations that cover everything from, any side effects, any withdrawal symptoms that we need to address, all the way to, what is going to help to prevent them from picking it back up in the future. What happens when there's a really stressful day? What is our plan? How are we going to keep our hands busy when we're on the road and suddenly we're like, I don't know what to do with my hands.
Right.
Those moments are going to happen. And so we want to address all of that and be proactive. Along the way, I'm also tracking tobacco-free milestones. They're eligible for prizes along the way, and thanks to Road Pro. And so I will request those when it's time, and they get prizes all the way along as they're hitting those milestones. And then at a year, we say, all right, you have achieved the mission, which was to get them to a year. We know at a year, they're much more likely to be successful long-term. But of course, they can always come back. If anything happens, they can always come back. They can start with me again, and we're starting from experience. We're not starting over. And so that happens sometimes. It's okay.
So getting that one-on-one support directly from you has to be a huge benefit for the drivers. And the drivers that you have now, how often do they utilize that generally? Weekly, daily, or does it just depend on where they're at in the journey?
It really depends on where they're at. We usually start out with weekly or biweekly check-ins. If they were going through a particularly challenging time, I've had ones where we're texting pretty regularly throughout the week, and maybe every couple of days, I'm like, hey, how's it going? We're still in that tough range. Let's see what we can do to get you through it. As time goes on, the hope is that the cravings get a little less, and maybe they don't need weekly check-ins. And so then we may bump it out to every other week or once a month. Usually by the end, I think most of them are like, I've got this those last few months. And so it may be even every other month, but they've got a phone number that they can get a hold of me, call or text anytime. They've got an email that they can get in touch with me. And so even when we go those longer spans of time, they know that there's still somebody that's going to answer that phone if they need it.
That's great. So for the driver who's feeling really overwhelmed, or they think I'm too far gone, I don't have time to take care of my health, I don't have time to, do the smoking cessation program, what is the one, and I know this is going to be a hard one, what's the one small realistic step that you would recommend that they take this week?
Yeah.
This is Monday. What do we do this week?
If we were talking about tobacco cessation specifically, I would say, let's look at how many cigarettes we're smoking in a day, or how many times we're hitting a vape pen or using dip, whatever the source is, and commit to doing 10% less this week. And chances are that 10% is not enough, so that we're not going to have withdrawal symptoms. We're not going to be miserable and cranky and headaches and all the things. It's just enough so that we're turning it in the right direction. And we get it this week and 10% less. And then next week, we're going to do 10% less again. And it's baby steps. And we take that approach with all of our health and wellness programs. We want it to be something that we feel like we can do pretty easily. This is not, we're completely overhauling our lifestyle. Now, eventually, sometimes people are doing that, but a little at a time.
Yeah. And that's a good way to do it, because most people get overwhelmed. And that's a conversation that I had with Michael Anthony Lombard a couple weeks ago, with it being the new year, new you. So many people dive out and try to do too much at once. It's overwhelming. And then the failure rate is high. So by doing the smaller steps, do you see higher percentages of people being able to complete?
Very much so, yes. When we take those small bite-sized pieces, it is much more manageable. It feels doable. It takes away some of that overwhelm. But I also believe that it's a mindset of when we've got something small and achievable, we tell ourselves, oh, I can do this. Whereas if we're going to put down all the cigarettes this week, people are like, no, I don't know. I'm not sure that I can do that. And we'll talk ourselves out of it before we even start.
Yeah, I quit smoking 19 years ago, and I used Chantix. And back then, and I don't know how it is now, but back then you would pick your quit date.
Mhm.
And you had a time frame that you were on Chantix up into that quit day. And when my quit day came, I wasn't ready. And I had a coach, and I told her, I'm not ready. And she says, pick another day. And I picked another day a little bit farther out. And I just woke up one day in the middle of those two dates, and I never picked up another cigarette. But it seemed like that picking a date was very overwhelming for me.
Mhm.
It was like a doom day, or, it's like when I tell myself I'm going to diet, my body instantly starts starving. Um, so do you set dates like that? Or do you just kind of baby step them through these week by week reductions?
Yeah, it's a great question. I fully leave that up to the driver. We talk about the pros and cons to both of them. And a lot of people experience exactly what you're describing. They get closer to that day and they're like, I don't know. I don't know if I can do that. That feels like we're just taking away the entire crutch all at once. And that
Yeah,
feels too much. Right. And
it
so,
does. And it seems like it makes you smoke more stressing over this date.
yes, that's what I call the last hurrah. When we set the date, if we're going to rehab now, then people get this mindset of like, let me get it all in at once. I'm going to finish
Right.
smoking all the cigarettes. And then that just makes it harder when that day comes. And so some people do quit that way and they are very successful. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's not for everybody. And so we talk about it's okay to step it along as long as we keep it moving, right? We don't want to get to 50% and then just decide we're going to stop there. We want to keep going with it. But there's nothing wrong with dragging it out a little bit as long as we're setting some realistic expectations and set some goals along the way so that we don't get stuck there.
I like that you're not cookie cuttering the process, and you're kind of individualizing it to each person. That really says a lot about the time you're taking with each driver. That's
I
great.
think that if we
So,
cookie cutter it, then it's not successful because everybody's
no.
different.
Yeah. Well, a lot of organizations, a lot of people, I want to say, a lot of things are set up as a cookie cutter
Mhm.
process. And I don't think that the success rate is as good when you use a cookie cutter process as individualized treatment.
I completely agree with that. Yes.
So you've been at St. Christopher's Fund how long now?
Right at 3 years.
3 years.
Mhm.
So in your 3 years, what's one powerful story? And I'm sure you have plenty, because you seem to be well invested in these drivers. But what's one powerful story that you've seen where St. Christopher's Fund has made a huge difference for a driver or their family, or driver and their family?
Oh goodness. The first driver that comes to mind, he has been in a number of our health and wellness programs. His name is Dan. He's given me permission to share his story just because it's so special to me. But he started with me in Without Sigs. He was actually one of my very first people that was starting in that program with me from start to finish. And he was a little bit different from clients that I've worked with in the past, though I found that this is more common in the trucking industry. He was just very aware of the challenges that he faced, and he was very open about it, which I appreciated. And he would say things like, I don't know what to do with my hands. I walk into a room, and normally I would be going into that room at home to go pick up my cigarettes and go outside. And I walk in the room and I feel stuck. I'm like, I don't know what to do with my hands, and I feel weird, and this is very uncomfortable. And he was open to just like, let's explore that. What are we going to do when we walk in that room instead? And sometimes we came up with silly ideas, and sometimes it was like, it may have been silly, but it worked. And so during his time in that program, we talked about some other health and wellness topics. And I said, well, we've got other programs you may be interested in. Next thing I knew, he was in our Healthy Habits program, which is chronic disease management. And he has got psoriatic arthritis, and he's, like many drivers, has been avoiding lab work for a very long time. And he's one that
I'm in that category as well.
Yes. And I get it. I totally get it. He historically has had that vasovagal response where he may or may not pass out if he's having lab work. And I've been there. I've had that problem before. And so we talked about, okay, you're going to go in and you're going to be well hydrated, and you're going to bring a heat pack, like a hand warmer for the crook of your arm. And you're going to tell them, hey, I may pass out. And they're going to put you in a chair. We talk through all the things. And it took a little while, but eventually he went and got lab work, and it gave us a really good idea of, okay, what do we need to work on now? And so anyways, he's been in many of our programs, but what was really most meaningful was when his wife actually reached out, and she said, I've been so worried about him because his dad passed away young, and he's come into that age, and he wasn't taking very good care of his health up until he joined your programs. And she mentioned the fact that he may have taken some like alternative approaches to health and wellness, like essential oils and things like that she didn't have a whole lot of faith in. And she just was very thankful for the fact that she felt like she was going to be able to have him around longer. And I thought, this is exactly why we do what we do, because it's for him, but it's also because his family loves him dearly and wants to keep him around long term. And so anyways, I think of him often when we are bringing new programs, like we're going to reach more people that we get to keep around longer, and their families get to keep them around longer. And hopefully I think of all the things we're hopefully preventing along the way. Yeah.
And all these services are free to drivers, correct?
Mm-hmm. They're completely free.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So looking ahead, what's on the agenda? What's next for St. Christopher's Fund as far as our health and wellness efforts for 2026 and beyond?
Yeah. So we are actually very excited. We are about to roll out another part of a program. It's called GPS, Get Preventative Screenings, and it's preventative cancer screenings. So we currently have colorectal cancer screening and a prostate cancer screening, and we are very close to launching cervical cancer screenings. So we will get.
I was just getting ready to say, because prostate is male centered. What about the girls?
Yes. So we have had them in mind. So it's an at-home screening, which is what I think is most important about all of these screenings. A driver can do it in the comfort of their own home or when they're out on the road. We want to provide the convenience of these screenings. And so back in May of 2025, the FDA approved an at-home cervical cancer screening. It's really just an HPV swab that can be done at home or on the truck. And then it gets sent to a lab, which they have no cost with that. It comes in a prepaid mailer that they can just send off, and then they get those results back. And so we've been very anxiously waiting for those kits to start becoming available nationwide. And we're right there at that point. We're solidifying some partnerships. And so anyway, we're very excited to be able to offer this for all the female drivers that are out there.
That's a great thing that technology has gotten to that point where these very important tests can be done that way, where they don't have to try and figure out how to get into a lab, that they can do it in the comfort of their home or on the road in the semi. That's great. I mean, that's amazing that we're at that point.
It's amazing how far science has come. And it, for women, I think especially, this is an important one because it takes the discomfort of having to go
Yes.
in and get that swab done, right? Nobody likes that process. It's not a fun process. We know that. And I think
No,
many times
no.
people will avoid it or delay it until potentially there's issues. And that's
Yeah.
the whole problem behind it. And so we want to remove that as much as possible. Now, of course, if one of these came back up normal, we're still going to have to go in and have that appointment anyway. But for a lot of women, this is hopefully going to be a very easy, it's negative, you're good to go for the next 3 years, and it's peace of mind when they're out on the road. One less thing to worry about.
So these programs that you're offering, these tests that you do, these things are not free for your side of it. So I imagine you have sponsors. Do you do charity drives? You do, what do you do to raise funds, fundraising drives? There we go. Wow. It's Monday. Tammy can't talk. Do you have fundraising that you do? Do you have a donate now button if listeners want to get involved or support the cause?
Great question. So on our website, we do have a donate now button. Any money that is coming from individual donors goes to the beneficiary side of our organization. Most of our health and wellness programs are being funded either by sponsors. So places like OIDA, they are phenomenal supporters of our programs. We do also apply for grants, which sometimes help to support our programs as well. And we also do a virtual 5K, and that'll be coming up in May, the early part of May. And so you'll probably start to see some advertising about that. It's just a fun event, gets people up and moving, and raises awareness for some of the unique health challenges that drivers face, but also that money goes back to help support them through programs like GPS and Rigs Without Sigs.
Nice. So the virtual 5K, what's the platform you guys are using? Are you doing it where it's connected with like health and fitness apps on their phones, or how are you tracking the miles for this?
Yeah, so we use a program called Run Sign Up, and they can download the app and track through there, but it will also sync up with all of the different fitness trackers. So if they've got one that they particularly like, they can stick with that one, and that's okay too. They've got all week to complete it. And so what's really nice with
Okay.
this is that we're not necessarily aiming for fastest time or anything like that. It's just get up and get moving. And so if we've got to do a little bit on Monday and a little bit on Tuesday and a little bit on Wednesday, that's all right. That's not going to hurt a thing. We still get health benefits from that, so I'm fully supportive of that. But it also encourages people to join us no matter what their fitness level is. It's just get up and get moving.
So 5K, for some that don't know, that's 3 miles, a little over 3 miles. For a driver, that's a lot. So when you sit on your rump for 11 hours a day and potentially put in a 14-hour day, most of the time, drivers don't get in that many steps a day. As a driver, I used to count my steps on the road. I was very active between 10 and 14,000, and I went to less than 5,000 as a driver over the road. So
Yeah.
getting 3 miles in a week is a good goal.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's sometimes it's getting creative with 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there when we're waiting on the microwave for that minute while something is cooking. Can we do some steps in play? Whatever it takes, right? We got to get creative.
Yeah. That is awesome. So I will look forward to that. I will join that.
Wonderful.
I started my fitness journey. Every year I join a transformation weightlifting challenge. So mine started today. So I dove in and had my Dubai chocolate last night before the challenge started today. So that'll be a great thing to add to my list of activities in the next few weeks.
Absolutely.
So where can listeners go and drivers go to learn more about St. Christopher Fund, or to get started in the health and wellness programs?
Mm-hmm. So on our website, truckersfund.org, and as of right now, we have got tabs along the top that cover, it's got our application if it's a driver that's needing help. It's got health and wellness, which covers all of our programs, plus some of our partners as well. So we've got our mental health partners in there. We've got all of our supportive of our program. We've got health and wellness articles. We've got podcasts. We've got all sorts of things tucked in that category. We've got a new website coming, and so it'll be a little bit more streamlined. But as of right now, that's where it stands. But truckersfund.org, and that houses everything.
Okay. Now, the podcast, do you only access it through the website, or is your podcast on any of the platforms?
We have, it's on a few different ones. Our producer's really good to help get those out, but they are all on our website. And so that's where I would tell people probably to find it the easiest.
Okay. And if you could tell them again, it's the Highway to Hope podcast, correct?
Mm-hmm. Highway to Hope.
How often do you put out new episodes?
We're aiming for once a month. Our hope is that in 2026, we're going to get 18 in total. So we're increasing that goal a little bit. We've got lots of fun things to talk about. That's really why we're doing that. So we're very excited about some new things to come. But typically, you can expect about one a month. Maybe there's a bonus one in there.
Well, that's awesome. Well, Lindsey, I want to thank you so much for your time today. Not just with going over you and your journey, but also St. Christopher's. And you have a huge heart. I can tell. You are so invested in your drivers, and it really shows with this interview. So I just want to say that as a driver myself and an advocate, I really appreciate you fighting for drivers. That's my biggest thing when I get out here.
I love that I get to give back to you all. You all do so much, you sacrifice so much, and it really is a joy and a privilege to be able to give back.
So, well, everybody, thank you for listening in to this week's Training Tuesday. If you want to know more about St. Christopher's Fund, go ahead and hop on over to truckersfund.org. Lindsey, as she said, she spearheads a lot of these programs, and she will be your number one resource, advocate, and contact. Again, this is Tammy with Truckin' with Tammy, and you guys stay safe out there.